and welcome back to Reclaim the Room. I'm Ridley, and Howard is out for just a little bit longer. Today's episode, in case you haven't noticed, is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be shorter, maybe a little bit easier to listen to, and it's going to be more of a pause rather than a push.
The views and opinions expressed by Howard and Ridley through Reclaim the Room, including the podcast, blog, and social media, are solely our own and do not reflect the views or policies of any employer or organization. Content is provided for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, medical, or psychological advice. Copyright Reclaim the Room, all rights reserved.
The last few episodes have covered a lot, emotionally and intellectually. And before we move forward, I wanted to take a quick moment to recap where we've been. So today, it's not about pushing new ideas. It's more about grounding what we've already named. In episode 3, we named something that often hides in plain sight: secondary traumatic stress in educators. Not burnout, not needing better self-care, not a personal failure. Secondary traumatic stress happens when you are repeatedly exposed to other people's trauma. And in schools, especially those high needs campuses, that exposure is constant. There's rarely any closure, there's rarely relief, and there's often pressure to keep functioning as if none of that matters. That episode was about saying, this is real, this is occupational, and you are not broken for feeling it. In episode 4, we slowed down and we talked about what trauma actually does to the nervous system. Not in a trendy way, and not in a clinical lecture, but in a practical classroom real way. We talked about why logic disappears under stress, why patience feels inaccessible, and why your body reacts before your thoughts can catch up. And because trauma doesn't live in your ideas, it lives in your body. And until school systems understand that, they will keep asking traumatized people to push through using tools that literally don't work under stress. Episode 5 might have been the hardest one. That episode was about silence. The kind that looks like professionalism, the kind that gets rewarded, and the kind that slowly eats away at teachers and staff behind closed doors. We talked about how school cultures often unintentionally train educators to minimize, absorb, and normalize harm, because speaking up is risky and staying quiet feels safer. But silence isn't neutral. It has a cost. And that shows up as exhaustion, disconnection, resentment, health issues, and eventually people leaving the profession altogether. I wanted to pause here, not because we're stuck, but because these ideas build on one another. You can't address behavior without understanding trauma. You can't talk about wellness without naming exposure. And you can't create change while pretending silence is harmless. And it deserves to be approached with care. Next week, we'll move into a more conversation-based episode. No hype, no toxic positivity, just honest, usable conversations. So before you go, I want to ask you something simple. If any part of the last 3 episodes made you think, oh, that explains a lot, I'd love for you to send this episode or one of the others to a colleague who might need language for what they're feeling. And if you're able, take 30 seconds to rate or review this podcast on YouTube, like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And even though this has been a much shorter episode, it is still an important part. And I thank you so much for listening, for being here, and for staying with me during these conversations, even if they felt a little uncomfortable. So we will be back next week. Until then, take care of yourself in ways that actually matter. And thank you for helping us reclaim the room.
Reclaim the Room credits, otherwise known as Teacher Duties as Assigned. Bus Duty, Howard. Hallway Duty, Ridley. Cafeteria Duty, Howard. Recess Duty, Ridley. Field Trip Coordinator, Howard. After School Tutoring, Ridley. Required attendance for Howard and Ridley. Staff meetings, PLC, and every single one of those committees.